music, athletics, arts, and entertainment. The Desert Tiger Podcast with Colton Geschwadner.
A little over a year ago, the band I was playing in was approached by a friend of ours, Brad Cole, and asked if we wanted to open for Canadian punk rock icons, Belvedere, for a show that he was promoting on October 7th, 2016. Belvedere is a band that has toured the globe on various occasions, garnering themselves a very dedicated fan base in places like Europe, South America, and Asia. The band released 4 albums before their initial breakup in 2005, those albums being Because No One Stopped Us in 1998, Angels Live in My Town in the year 2000, 'Twas Hell Said Former Child in 2002, and Fast Forward Eats the Tape in 2004. Those albums were full of skate-worthy, catchy and quick, angsty and political anthems of the time they were created. The late 90s, early 2000s skate punk rock era. They may have been behind bands like Chicks Dig It, Propaganda, and Sum 41, but this didn't keep Belvedere from breaking outside of the Canadian music scene and going so much further. They reformed in 2012 to play a couple shows and eventually ended up releasing their 5th album in 2016, entitled Revenge of the Fifth. Revenge of the Fifth not only picked up on where Belvedere left off, but saw the band become more straightforward, almost wizened by their years away from the band. So you can imagine that I myself was more than ready to perform on that evening. After a fantastic show that also featured Clipwing from Winnipeg, Belvedere twilighted the evening with an array of classics from across their 5 albums. After their set, I had the pleasure of meeting Steve Rawles, frontperson and guitarist of Belvedere, in person, and was very happy to see that he was very humble even after all the years of being on the road. You can also imagine I was very excited when Steve Rawles agreed to meet with me for a one-on-one interview looking into the history of the band, his solo work, and where Belvedere stands now. Hello and welcome to the Desert Tiger Podcast. I am your host, here as always, Colton Geschwadner, and this is episode 8 with Steve Rawles of Belvedere. Alright, before we get into our interviews, you know we like to look at a couple of things and listen to a little bit of music. So let's start it off with what's new in video games this week. It's a little bit of a catch-up week on previous releases, as there's really only 2 games coming out this week. That being Call of Duty World War II on PS4, PC, and the Xbox One. I was pretty sure that Call of Duty had looked at World War II before, but I guess whatever. They can do what they want. Also on the PS4 and the Vita, there is Summon Night 6, so if you're a little bit of an RPG player, maybe that's something you want to look into. Alright, that's actually all there is for video games this week. Like I said, this is a little bit of a week to catch up on previous releases that maybe you picked up and you haven't gotten to. Let's take a look at comics. Alright, this week in comics, we have The Jetsons #1 dropping off DC. This is a postmodern take of the Jetsons like they did with Flintstones recently, and has Jane working at NASA, and George is a little bit stuck in the past and isn't into all the new technology that's going around. We also have a couple of other #1s from DC this week, that being Black Lightning #1 and Deadman #1. Both of these series are being renewed by DC and have artists that led both characters to their rise retaking the lead mantle on those characters, which is fantastic. We also have from DC this week that you should look at Batman The Dark Prince Charming, which is written and drawn by Enrico Marini, Italian comic legend, and has Batman taking a little bit more of a European style, and is given a bit of a twist in this hardcover edition, which only runs for $12.99. We have from Image Comics Gravediggers Union #1, which is starting out and is a bit of a comedy-based horror series and sees the Gravediggers Union being the only thing that can hold the world from going into apocalypse. In music this week on Over at the Jukebox, we have Anti-Flag dropping American Fall. So if you're one of those anti-flag diehards, you should probably give that one a listen. From Converge, The Dusk in Us is coming out, which is always awesome to hear from those guys. If you're into metal, Cannibal Corpse is dropping Red Before Black this week. So if you're into the head banging and the mosh pitting, maybe get that on your rotation. And if you have a sweet spot for a little bit of pop, maybe you're looking at Sam Smith. Alright, that's all we have for our new music, comics, and video games this week. So, let's get into our song of the day, which comes to us from our guest today, Belvedere. The song of the day is going to be Shipwreck. It is very quick, it's very catchy, and it has killer riffs. I hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I do, and I hope you enjoy our interview with Steve Rawles from Belvedere.
Transitions, it must have slipped by my distractions. But did the proof of purchase supersede the voyage? Why do we glorify the audience? Like the same jump window, can't see the shoreline, sinking in silence, not engaging, only staying paid. Can't see the shoreline, sinking in silence. This ship of real intentions. Is this the natural transition? Some collective policy. This is the sound of my rejection. This is the hope I can't erase. All the games can't be for nothing, can't be saved. When the cycle stopped in motion, what will remain of our intent? Looks of images and lessons of the day. Abundant. Sunset of cliche, an obvious truth of the disease. Observation, overaction, no views, no satisfaction. Every adoration takes the lead. For the sake of window, can't see the shoreline, sinking in silence. This ship of real intentions. Is this the natural transition? Some collective policy. Is this the last evolution of fucking productivity? This is the sound of my rejection. This is the hope I can't escape. All the games can't be forgotten. All the options can't be spent. When the cycle stops in motion, when the oceans start to recede, just remains of all projections in the sea.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
Welcome to the Desert Tiger Podcast. Stephen Rawles from Belvedere.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
You guys recently played a few shows out east. How was that for you guys?
It was really good. Yeah, we did Toronto, Ottawa, and St. Hyacinthe, Quebec festival out there with Bird Attack Records, and it was awesome. We were there with Such Gold, Sled, and 88 Fingers Louie. Ontario and Quebec's always been really good for us, so yeah, really
That's good. How, you guys played a festival out there?
Yeah, we did this festival called the Invasion Festival, which was mostly Bird Attack Records bands, all the four bands that were sort of touring together, but then plus some Quebec bands that were on Bird Attack, Dutch Nuggets, a couple other ones there too, off the top of my head, can't think, but yeah, it was great.
Okay. How long have you guys been with How long have you guys been with Bird Attack?
We just did the one record, the last
Just
one.
the Revenge of the Fifth?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was, so I guess maybe the better part of a year and a half. And Garrett and I have been buds for a long time, and Bird Attack kind of morphed into an actual label, and that was good timing for us when we were thinking about releasing something.
That's good. Where does the name Belvedere
So that came up in, well, okay, we started in 95, so
Yeah.
I would say probably late 94. It was just kind of we took it from the show Mr. Belvedere, you know.
Okay.
And so this is going back quite a bit. You know, it's become kind of a generic name at the time. We weren't really that serious. It was just a bunch of kids in a basement. So we thought maybe we'd play a show or two. So, you know, you didn't really put a lot of thought into a band name. But,
You just grabbed it and then it eventually stuck?
Well, it stuck, and then we ended up really doing a lot of stuff. And so it's funny, you know, then all of a sudden you get the cigarettes and the vodka, and every second town in Italy is called Belvedere. So it's I wouldn't say it's the most it's not the most original name in the world, but it's stuck with us.
Okay, so you mentioned that you guys started in 95. How did Belvedere get its start?
Well, I was just getting out of high school, and you know, just found a buddy down at a music store here, and you know, found a drummer, and that was it. We were just gonna, like, you know, I had a record label at the time called Hourglass Records, and I was putting out stuff from Downway, and I was putting out a compilation CD of 4 local bands, and I just wanted to record 4 Belvedere songs, thinking that was all we were gonna do, is do that and maybe play a couple of shows, and kind of, you know, I thought the label was going to be the focus, you know.
So you thought your band was going to more so support the label bands type thing?
Yeah, well, I didn't even think we would do anything, to be honest with you. I thought I was going to be the label guy that just had a band on the side, but then it turned out that the band grew bigger than the label, and that became my focus for a long time. I mean, really my full-time job for the better part of 15 years. So.
Yeah, so how long did you end up running a label for?
I had the label Hourglass Records from late 94 till I think 2002. I kind of finally threw in the towel. Most of the bands at that point had either broken up or gone on to bigger labels, and I was so busy with Belvedere that you know, I had nothing else. I had no other time for anything else.
It was really hard to balance the both of them.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was absolutely.
Yeah, I could see how that'd be very hard, getting that to all balance. And
we got to remember too that at that time Belvedere was out 200 days a year, maybe 250 sometimes.
You guys were really at your peak back then.
Yeah, in terms of how much we were out, that was definitely our peak.
Okay. What is the Belvedere's, well, I guess I should ask, what was your writing process like for the first 4 albums before your guys' like hiatus, I guess
Well, it definitely wasn't a hiatus. We split for good, but cooler heads have prevailed, and we've all gotten older and decided it was a good idea to come back, and we sort of mended the issues that we had in the past. But writing process, I mean, the last record was good in that we had all the time in the world. We didn't have deadlines. It was always tour cycle, record, put out an album, tour again. Where this time it was, you know, we had all the time in the world, and which is good because we don't really have all the time in the world right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can only jam once every couple weeks. We were recording in small chunks. Our drummer Casey has a studio, so we were able to go in, and we wrote this album over 2 years versus sometimes weeks. You know.
Okay, so you started writing it like shortly after the 2012 tour then?
Yeah, maybe 2014 we started writing. So maybe I'd say maybe about a year and a half to write it, and it took us 2 months to record it. So 2 and 3 hour chunks at a time.
And then your newer drummer was the one who recorded it all?
He recorded it, and then we mixed it with at the Blasting Room in Colorado. And they've done lots of good records, Lagwagon and A Willem Scream and Descendants and stuff like that.
Oh, so. Awesome. So they have a pretty reputable backlog too.
Yeah, that was a place that we'd wanted to go for, for a long time.
That's good. Where did you end up like recording the first couple albums?
That was a mix. So we did our first album we did in Vancouver for the cost of a kick drum mic on an 8-track, and we did it in about 5 days. It was cool because, you know, you do it on an 8-track, you have to really hone your skills, you know, because there was no, like, you know, multi-tracks of background harmonies. We sat there, like, you know, 3 or 4 of us around a mic singing it, you know, live, and that was the takes that we got, which is, you know, very familiar to how things kind of used to be, and it was on 1-inch tape, and the whole process was pretty crazy. So, but we did that first record in Vancouver with a friend of mine, Kyle, and the second one we did in Vancouver at a place called Greenhouse Studios, and we did that in '98, and then the third one we did in Calgary, and then the fourth one we also did in Calgary with my old buddy Blair Calababa. So
okay,
yeah,
cool. Does your writing process change like at all when you were in This Is a Standoff or for your solo project at all? Like,
oh, it's huge. It's because Belvedere has its way of doing things, but This Is a Standoff is a tricky thing because one guy lives in Ottawa, two guys live in Edmonton, and I live in Calgary. So it's not just the local band, getting together to jam. So we, John, on the first record with This Is a Standoff, he was out here for a month, and we were just doing construction together, and we were jamming and writing at night. After that, it got very where we were sending files back and forth because there was no other way to do it. So, This Was a Standoff was a different thing because, again, that was supposed to be just this fun little side band I did after Belvedere broke up. And then that band ended up doing 3 records and touring to 30 countries and everything.
Ended up becoming more than you expected it to be once again.
For sure, and I guess that says a little bit of, I just can't sit by just kind of being the local band. I have to get out there and play because playing shows and meeting friends and stuff is as important to me as the music is. So,
well, it's getting out there and meeting new people and actually seeing how your music has affected them is huge.
Yeah, and the acoustic thing, I mean, that's its own thing altogether because I have no timelines. I have no other people to clash with. I'm my own worst critic. So
okay, for those who haven't heard your solo work, how does it differ, like lyrically or energetically, from say the Belvedere, besides just being an acoustic project?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot different in terms of music. I mean, it's probably more of your sort of, I don't know, Jack Johnson style of music. It's pretty mellow, and it's a lot more personable than, I guess it's more, like half that album's about my wife, so, it's like, it's a love album versus, social commentary and of Belvedere. Yeah, it's a different thing. I didn't feel, I felt like I was getting out everything I needed to say on those kind of topics with Belvedere, and This Is a Standoff, where this was just about, like, my life and how I perceive it.
Well, that's good. You always kind of have to have those different, I guess, what would I say, those means to get out those different feelings and
it's a different
energies.
It's a different kind of outlet, so I did kind of put myself out there because you can't really blame anybody but yourself, and so you take all the criticism for it. But I think a lot of people, it certainly didn't appeal to a lot of Belvedere fans, but I think a lot of people kind of got it, and it was just, it's nice Sunday chill music.
Well, it is some people are going to come at you and be like, well, it's too different, and it's like, well, it's not Belvedere, so what do you expect, right?
No, I think I'm fortunate enough that I have a few different outlets to put out different music, because I do like different music,
Okay, if you don't mind me asking, you said that you guys actually broke up. Is there any specific reason that led to that, or?
Yeah, we just ran ourselves into the ground. I think a lot of people kind of think, 200 shows a year, that sounds cool, but it's not that cool. And, we're not sitting in a tour bus, like, rocking stadiums every night. We spent the better part of the 90s on basement shows in the States, and I don't take for granted any of this stuff. I loved all this stuff. But I think after being in a van with each other for as many years as we did and for as long as we did, it just took a toll. Everybody wanted to do something different with their lives, and you just tired of staring at the same people in a van all the time, so it did take, so we had a definite split, and that was it. And I kind of wandered aimlessly, kind of wondering what the hell I was going to do with my life for a while, because I'd always been in that band,
Yeah. So then that's sort of what led to This Is a Standoff then?
Yeah, I knew John. John was in a band called 40 Cent Fix from Ottawa, who we kept in touch with. And I remember he was doing merch for Protest the Hero, and he was out in Calgary here, and we were just hanging out. And I'd been, toying with the idea with Graham from Belvedere about starting another band. But it wasn't until John and I started writing where we kind of felt like this was the right group of people. Okay. And then we kind of went from there.
That's awesome. What was it like to finally reunite 7 years later?
Well, it was weird. It was really good because we went up to Graham's house and actually jammed there, and it was really good. It was weird because I really love playing those songs, but it was kind of strange after being in This Is a Standoff, because you have to kind of change gears. You got to remember all the chords. You got to. For me, I have to remember all the singing and stuff. So I have to kind of retrain myself a little bit. Yeah, I remember that first show. Our first show was in Paris in 2012, and we played for like an hour and a half, and it was like. It was really great, but I felt really good afterwards because we kind of got that one out of the way. And then we played Groesrock, which is one of our biggest shows probably to date. I think there's, a lot of people there. So it was very good, and I'm really happy that we're together and having a good time, because I really do enjoy those songs, and I like the guys in the band a lot, and it's a lot of fun to play.
That's good. What are the challenges of being a band that sort of took that larger period of time off? Like, did you guys have to rebuild any momentum? Did the punk scene sort of accept you guys again? Like, how did that all work?
I mean, it was kind of an interesting thing because, you know, the other guys weren't out touring as much as I was. Like, I had a pretty good idea that things were going to go okay with Belvedere because I had spent the last, 5-6 years touring with This Is a Standoff and talking with people about Belvedere and having them ask us to play Belvedere covers and stuff and us saying no, but thanks for being here, So I had a good idea that it was going to go pretty good. I had no idea though it was going to go as good as it did, and it seemed like the band actually got bigger while we were split up. So when we were coming back playing bigger festivals and bigger shows than we had ever done when we were active. So
it's kind of having less people had access to being able to see you, so that kind of made them want you more type thing?
Maybe, but I think also like, time does... you think the band splits up for 7 years, and there's a whole group of kids now that are kind of coming into the punk scene that never saw us when we were active. So all of a sudden, and I feel that like we've got really dedicated fans that even though we're in our 30s and 40s, they still make time to come out to see us play, which we really appreciate. But I think now there's this sort of influx of like younger kids that are maybe coming to check us out, and I think that's where the festival circuit really helps us out in Europe because we're able to play with bands like NoFX and Pennywise and Bad Religion on these festivals, and we're able to play for more people, and so we're very lucky that the band has seemed to gain a little bit of momentum.
That's good. It's good that you guys are able to take your previous success and build on it once you came back.
Well, we kind of laugh about it now because we've kind of eaten dirt for quite a few years in the 90s, doing these basement shows in front of 5 people, and it was a good character builder, and I think it really shaped the band's focus and how we perceive things now, because when we do these festivals in front of thousands of people, we don't take it for granted. We kind of laugh at each other a lot because you're on stage and you're going like, I can't believe this is still happening. And I'm in my 40s now, and you kind of go, I still can't believe this is happening. And I think that's why the 15-year-old in me will never die in regards to this stuff, because even though I do a lot of the booking in the band business and everything, and I should be more jaded, I don't feel like I am. I feel like it's still such a joy to be able to do this.
That's good. That's good that you can keep a level head and that you understand that the music is still what's important about it and that the people are there. And
it is, yeah.
It's good that you guys can actually appreciate the growth from a 5-person house show to like huge festivals. It is. Some people just get frustrated with that, and that's the reason why they leave the music industry rather than realizing that, like, you know what, I'm going to play my heart out for these 5 people and maybe I'll make 5 fans.
Yep.
Whereas, like, some people would just not do that at all.
Well, it really struck me because when we first came back, we came back and we did some shows out east, and we did Toronto at the Opera House.
Yeah.
And Willem Scream opened up the tour, and it was so funny because it was like, back in the day we could never have dreamed to open a show there, and we were headlining. It was sold out in front of like 900 people. And I'm looking out of the crowd, and I recognize a lot of these people because we've slept on their floors, we've played their basement shows in all these little towns outside of Toronto, and everybody came together for us that night. And we played for an hour and 45 minutes that night. We played everything from our first album. We got about 70 songs to kind of choose from. I think we played about 35, 40 that night, and it was just so that'll always stick in my head as such a special moment because it just felt like we got the whole gang together from Southern Ontario for that night, and it was very special.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you guys could actually like get that feeling and make that difference over the years. You say that you book most of your tours and everything. What is it like being a DIY artist that?
Well, that's all we knew. I mean, we certainly had help from. I don't want to take credit here and say that we're completely DIY because we have had, especially when we were active, we had booking agents, we had labels, we had all that stuff. We had to work up to that point, though. That didn't just happen. And now we kind of take the reins. We've got all the contacts anyways, so especially when you're kind of touring part-time, you can only go out for a few days at a time. You have to kind of make things work, and these are the relationships we have with these promoters. So what's that like? That is a hard road to go, but it's the only road I know.
Well, that's good. That's DIY is what a lot of people are trying to do now, and it's good to see that there's proven talent that has.
Well, it's kind of funny that, like, I mean, DIY means a few things to me. I mean, the thing is that when you're from Calgary, we don't have the luxury of living in California and being down the street from these labels and these agencies. I use Chicks Dig It as a model for us, because Chicks Dig It ended up getting on some of those bigger labels, but they were the guys that they were the road dogs. They were just a small band from Calgary that had some great songs and a great attitude, and just started pushing and carved the road. In fact, I credit Chicks Dig It for helping me back in the day learn about how to do visas to tour the States in the first place.
Yeah.
They were always that one band in Calgary that was so generous with their time, and we've stayed great friends with all those guys over the years because of that. Where it seemed like back in the day there was this sort of mentality that it was this big competition, but Chicks Dig It was always just kind of there having a good time, there to help. And I've always taken from that and said I've always tried to help people as much as I can. But it's really funny because not many people in my own city have taken that offer.
See, it's odd because I found the same thing too, as coming from Saskatchewan, where it's the music scene isn't really much into the punk feel these days, or isn't, and it's like once you break out into other places, it seems that it's almost, there's more people outside of your city that are affected by what you do and the things that you write, and it's amazing to meet those people.
I think you got to keep a good attitude with this stuff. We certainly caught our share of shit talking from the local scene here in Calgary, but you kind of, if all you do is sit around dwelling on that kind of stuff, you're never going to go anywhere. And the people that sort of festered that and built off that never really left Calgary.
There's always going to be people that are negative towards you, but that just sort of seems to attest to, are they really trying, or are they just trying to knock you down because they're afraid that you're going to go further than they are?
Well, like I said, I never thought much about it. I was too busy going out there, and that was the template that was set in front of me by good bands like Chicks Dig It.
That's good. It's good that you have bands like Chicks Dig It, because it's something that I've realized from both of your live shows, is both bands are very big on involving the fans and asking you what do you guys want to hear, and
it's connection.
That's it. You guys are very humble in the way that you operate, and that's something that I really appreciate in something from a larger band from Western Canada, is you guys are really care about your fans, which seems like a lot of bands don't. And
well, thanks for saying that. I think to this day, we still make it a lot of effort to go out, not sitting in a back room somewhere, but going out there and chatting with people. And I know how much it means to me when bands do that with me. We've been fortunate enough to tour some really great bands that are heroes of mine, and I think it says a lot when you walk away from a tour going, those guys are just fucking great guys on top of everything. But I think the connection is that we built this fan base one CD at a time, one fan at a time. It was sure, only 5 people are at the show, but 2 of them are walking away with a CD, and maybe 10 will be there next time. That was always our mentality. And so I think, I know I spend a lot of time still on social media engaging and talking with people, because how can you not have time for people? They're keeping our band going.
Well, that's exactly it. It's a relationship that you need each other to operate, and a lot of people don't understand that, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, like I say, I still pinch myself that we're still able to do this. If you told me that, when I was in my 40s, I'd still be screaming my head off, I don't think I would have believed you.
That's, a lot of people don't have that opportunity, and it's good that you do. It's fantastic that a band from a place from Calgary is able to have that sort of longevity and able to make their difference.
And I think too, it's taken a different meaning to me now, because I'm married and I have a young son, and through the last 5 years especially, I've been able to involve my wife in a lot of this stuff. She works, and she's but she loves to travel, and she loves selling T-shirts. You'll tend to see her at the festival selling our T-shirts and stuff. So I have a good support system.
That's good.
She's been to Japan and South America and Europe a bunch of times, and so we're able to make this more of a family thing. And this last April, we played Grows Rock, and I was actually able to have my son and my mother-in-law, on stage when we played. And so
really?
I got a picture of my kid with his little headphones on, and he didn't see the show because it's still too loud, even with the headphones. But the fact that I was able to have him there was even better, and it kind of brings all the, because it's a lot harder now to leave home. When you have a kid, it tugs on me like I've never felt before. I used to be out the door faster than anything, but when you have a wife and a kid, it really does settle you a little bit, and so it means a lot to be able to have them there, because I kind of get the best of both worlds. I don't have to leave my family, but I'm able to still enjoy what I do.
All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break from our interview with Steve from Belvedere, Don't be too afraid, we're still going to ask him about some of his favorite songs to play live and some of the favorite songs that he's written. We're going to talk to him about the late 90s, early 2000s punk rock scene and how those bands still thrive today. We're going to talk a little bit about influencing people and political lyricking as well. But before we get to that, you know, as we do every week, we need to get into our Desert Tiger Book Club. We do the Desert Tiger Book Club every Thursday here on the podcast, and this week we are going to review Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card. Ender's Shadow is a parallel novel to sci-fi epic Ender's Game, and follows Bean, Ender's most trusted friend in general. Bean is a young beggar boy, and a runt of one at that. Living in the mean streets of Rotterdam, where starvation and other gangs of kids are always a constant threat, Bean learns how to survive using his intelligence and his size. This immediately sets Ender's Shadow apart from Ender's Game, as Bean endures a much different upbringing and has such a different way of thinking and assessing situations because of that, which makes him so valuable to Ender later on. That aside from the fact that he is such a tiny target and can fit pretty much anywhere. Once Bean makes it to battle school, he falls under the watchful eye of Ender, who looks over him like the teachers once did to Ender himself, and they both quickly take to each other. Ender's Shadow is an excellent read, as it not only adds to the Ender's Game mythos, but also stands out on its own. Bean is an excellent character who is very well written and has a ton of struggles, and it's fantastic to watch how he gets through all of them. This novel also ended up spawning the Ender's Shadow series of novels that a lot of people, including myself, would actually almost argue is better than the Ender's Game series, or the quartet of Ender's Game novels, as Bean has to deal with so much more real-life struggle as he is dealing with the aftermath of battle school, as all the nations on Earth suddenly want to go to war now that there isn't a larger target again, so everybody wants to fight each other and they're trying to scoop up all these battle school children. And just Bean himself is a genius in the way he has to deal with it, and Ender himself goes more so into exile, so the Ender's Shadow string of novels almost has more action, a little more suspense than the Ender's Game ones in a way, so that's something I definitely think that you should check out, as I myself definitely enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me here for the Desert Tiger Book Club once again, and without further ado, we get back into our interview with Steve Rawles of Belvedere.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
So, do you enjoy the lesser touring schedule, like the more segregated timeline that allows you more time?
For sure. I mean, we've certainly had our opportunities that we've jumped at. We've taken on probably more touring than we probably normally would have. But some tours you can't say no to, right? So, yeah. But I like the fact that we only do about 20 or 30 shows a year. That's a good sweet spot. I mean, truth be told, I probably could handle a couple more shows. Yeah. But that's just what it's inside me. I can't get rid of that.
Well, that's it. Is you still got to feed it a bit, but you're not overdoing it.
No,
and training yourself.
And people don't want to see us in Toronto 4 times a year either. You know, you got to make it a special thing too. Otherwise, you're going to be back down playing in front of your 5 people again.
Well, that's exactly it. You overwork your market, and then what are you going to have left when you come through the 4th time?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's maybe a little more businessy way to look at it, but I think just ultimately we can tour as much as we can, and I guess we'll just keep doing it as long as people want to come out and see us. So
well, that's good.
And if not, then I'll play an acoustic guitar to my kid at home, and I'll probably be happy too. So.
Well, I hope that he enjoys it when you do.
Yeah, my kid likes music already. So
well, that's good. That's good that you're getting him started early and getting him started right.
You gotta.
You mentioned some of the bands that you've toured with in the past. Who are some of your favorite bands to tour with, and what are some of your favorite places that you have ever traveled? Like, what are some of your places to take? some time to relax and see the sights. And
yeah, well, I think hands down, like I think the Mad Caddies are probably one of our favorite bands to tour with. I think I was counting it up the other day because I just saw them here over the summer, and I think we played somewhere in the area of about 70 shows with them. And so we played in Canada, Europe. We did a big tour with them in Europe a bunch of years ago, and we did California with them as well. I would say they're probably our good buds in terms of, like, you know, bands that we've toured with in the past. You know, local bands Downway, we slugged it out with them in the beginning in the 90s too. You know, that we were always kind of close buds with them. Pulley from the States, we'd done some stuff in Canada as well as Europe with them too. Strung Out's been really good to us too.
Love them.
And we just did a couple weeks tour in South America with Lagwagon, and for me that was like, you know, that was the dream tour that you can't say no to.
Yeah, that was one of those tours that just came down the pipe that you had to take. Right?
That's right. You know, and you know, it's difficult to get that 2 weeks off. Sometimes not all the guys can make it, but you know, Brazil and South America in general is probably one of the places we do best in. And we've had a good fan base down there, and especially you throw Lagwagon in the mix, and man, what a blast! And it was with Adrenalized and Mute as well. It was just such a killer group of friends, and we really had a blast. So we did some dates with NoFX last year, and that was kind of a dream of mine too, because, you know, growing up listening to them for the better part of 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Those were big shows, and they were great. The band and the crew were very nice to us. And so yeah, just another really cool check mark off the list, and had a blast doing it.
That's cool. You guys were, I guess I would say you guys were part of the 90s punk wave that broke out. Let's call you the original Warped Tour bands. What was that like?
Well, I think we might have been a few classes behind that, but because I kind of think of that group as that 95, 96 Fat Records Epitaph crew.
Yeah.
I think we kind of really got rolling about 99, 2000, but man, it's just funny. Like, and a lot of those bands that I did grow up watching, we ended up touring with too. And it's funny to I think everyone's kind of, it is a bit of a bigger joke where everyone kind of, you see each other and you kind of go, man, are we still doing this? This is awesome, you know. So what does that feel like? I mean, we did the Warped Tour for a couple of years there, certain spots, not the whole thing, but it's funny to play these festivals now, like Rockfest and stuff, and it feels like all those bands from the Warped Tour in the 90s and early 2000s are now playing these festivals. We're all 15, 20 years older, but the kids are still there, you know.
Well, there's always going to be the need for that angsty type, rebellious type of music, because there's always going to be those people that need it. And
yeah, I mean, you know, it certainly isn't how things were in the mid to late 90s in terms of people coming out, because people move and change and change to different kinds of music. But
yeah,
there is a core group of people that came out of that era, or maybe, you know, after that era, that really like whatever this music is, whatever you call it, skate punk, melodic hardcore. I've heard so many different things. We've always just been a punk band, and we certainly came, I think our band came in at a time where you know, we tried to do things a little bit differently. We weren't just like 4/4 straight ahead, you know, verse chorus. We tried to be a little tricky with some of the guitar stuff and some of the songwriting and stuff, and it resonated with some people. And I don't make us to be bigger than what we are. It resonated with some people, and we're fortunate enough that was the case.
That's awesome. What inspires you to continue writing punk music, especially when you're in your 40s?
I just like it, and I think that, you know, punk music's always been a voice to me, and it's been a topical style of music for me. You know, I never got a lot from metal and metalcore and stuff, and I'm not saying it's not good music, but a lot of the stuff, if you actually break down the lyrics, it just never spoke to me the way punk did. You know, punk to me was the Dead Kennedys and DOA and NoFX and you know, Bad Religion was a big one for me back then too. Those were bands that really kickstarted my like for this kind of music, but it wasn't just the music itself. I found some of the music was accessible. It was easier to play than, you know, maybe some crazy Metallica riff or something like that back in the day, but you know, or crazy metal, you know, Iron Maiden stuff was always really great stuff, but like, I couldn't hope, and to this day I can't dream to play that stuff. You want good guitar playing, you ask Scott, you don't ask me. But you know, punk always seemed really accessible lyrically. It taught me a lot of things that I didn't really know about, and something I wasn't going to get on mainstream rock. You listen to any Propaganda record, and I go back to their first record. That's where I started with them, and it taught me about vegetarianism. It taught me about sexism and homophobic and all this kind of stuff. That it put it under a microscope, and you went, man, I got to not only think about how I live my life, but I have to spread this to other people. So when I was in my teens, I was like showing people like bands like Propaganda and NoFX, going like, this is real shit.
It's actually trying to make a difference as opposed to just trying to catch your ear for 3 minutes and make you dance.
That's
and
right.
Make you feel good. It's actually trying to make you realize that you can make a difference in the world and that there is an actual opportunity, because if these bands can do it, then you can do it too. And
I guess that's why I kind of scratch my head when people say, like, to bands that are a little more political or socially conscious of their lyrics, they're like, don't preach, just play your music. And I don't get that, because those bands were always I'm there for that. I'm not maybe 20 minutes speech between songs is maybe not how I would necessarily get my message across. But at the same time, like, you're not listening to these bands just for the music. You can't say that you're not taken in by some of the things that they're saying. And if you're not getting that message, maybe listen again.
Well, and it's just and if the music you're listening to isn't giving you that sort of feeling, or isn't like drawing feelings from you, or isn't teaching you something, is it really actually doing anything for you?
Well, I've always liked to be challenged, like, and that's not only as a player but also as a listener. I like, myself, like many hundreds of thousands of people out there, are always excited when Propaganda puts out a record.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to come out every year, that they took their time with it musically and lyrically. There's going to be something there that's going to blow your head off, and every time it does. It's one of the only bands I can say that about. And there's a lot of great records that come out, but that's the kind of excitement and challenge that I want.
They actually pour their hearts into, like, what can we do with this song and what can we do with that, rather than like, how can we make this last on the top 40.
Like how great of a time do we live in? Like, when the kind of records that are coming out now, bands that are supposedly past their prime are putting out these records. Look at Lagwagon's last record, Hang.
Yeah.
What an amazing record. Last Strung Out record is unbelievable.
The latest NoFX album is amazing.
Yeah, like it's start to finish too. It is so good. And what I like about those records is it doesn't make you think it's the best record the first time. These are albums that you're going to listen to 10, 12 times, and you're going to get it somewhere around then. And those are the records that stay with you. The records that like kind of dress up the cotton candy and get you all sweet and into it, you forget those records, but it's the records that have real substance, like the records that I talked about. Those are the records that you'll listen to for the next 20 years.
Well, and it's something that on your 20th listen you can actually pick up something that maybe you didn't hear the first time, whereas with the bubblegummy type stuff, you've heard it for the 20th time and now you're starting to get sick of it, because
I mean, look at Mad Caddy's last record, Dirty Rice. That's our favorite Mad Caddy's record, and that's hard for me to say, because I love Just One More and Duck and Cover and all those bands. But the Mad Caddies came out with such a good record that not only can I listen to it, but my kid loves it.
Yeah, which is fantastic, because it's spanning generations now, and that's speaking for itself. And one thing I'm enjoying a lot with a lot of these bands is they're taking a lot more time with their albums too. Yeah, which seems to be giving them a lot more. Like, there's a lot less pressure on them, especially like when you said with you, like, there's a lot more time to write, and you're coming out with a lot more quality material.
For sure. Yeah, and I want, Pulley's another good example of that too. They put out a really great record there last year as well. So, I just think it's a really good time for music. Yeah, and it's not coming at you as quickly as it used to, but it's really good when it does come out.
Well, there's still some of those bands that are on that 2 or 3 year cycle, and they're trying to do it, but a lot of them are still trying to make their way. Whereas a lot of the bands that already have proven and already know that their fan base is sticking with them can take a little bit more time with it. Yeah, which is fantastic.
No, for sure.
Well, we talked about some of your songwriting. What are some of your favorite Belvedere songs, and why?
Well, I think live Brandywine's probably my favorite. I think the crowd interaction there is really good. We always kind of nudge everybody to sing along, and it's one that's kind of stuck out. Slaves to the Pavement's also a lot of fun to play live, because I think that we're kind of like, in terms of a lot of our fans are in bands themselves, so I think it stuck out a little bit to kind of. I think it's such a fun song to play because it's like every day I kind of think about the lyrics, like, you know, we're still here. It's like we are still here, and it's kind of a funny thing, and we feel good about that. But on the new record, there's some good ones I really like. I think Jay wrote Shipwreck, and that's a great song that I love playing. Hairline's also really good. There's some ones that we don't play live as much that I think are personally mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
Like Generation Debt is like, that's just like keeping my kid in mind as the world, you know, explodes.
Well, and
slowly around us.
We are like completely in this generation of like, we're getting stuck in this hole of like, how do we bail ourselves out? And the future has to take it on. And
and I think like Revenge of the Fifth, it's a tricky one guitar wise, playing wise, but also lyric wise, it means a lot to me as well. And sort of that you kind of that one maybe is a little more positive than it probably comes off, but it actually is. It is kind of a celebration of you know, not just you know, bowing down and accepting how things are, but actually going out there and making a change and trying to steer everybody in the right direction, one person at a time.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Revenge of the Fifth. How does it differ from the earlier releases from Belvedere?
Well, lyrically, I used to write a lot of Belvedere songs at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't do that anymore. I would say that, you know, there's probably a lot of references and a lot of things alluding to certain topics, but not really coming out and saying it. And I think the Revenge of the Fifth is about as direct as you can get. I'm not really mixing words. So what you read on there is what I'm trying to say to you.
So you're not trying to veil things as much anymore?
No. Yeah, I think I just kind of just picking a topic and going with it and making a definite choice of what my stance is on things. So
just shooting straight and going right for it.
Well, and I think, like, you know, I'm trying to be a little more. I'm trying to write, you know, lyrics that have more substance than wrestling songs of the past and all that stuff. But, you know, like when you're 19 and you're 41, there's a difference in how things are. I've got a lot more riding on it now, in that I've got a family, and I've got a real urge to see this planet and this human race of ours move along.
I really do as well, and I hope they do too. We're kind of stuck in a rut, and we need to push out of it. There's a lot better things that the human race could be doing with themselves. And
I had this conversation with my wife a while ago, and we were kind of talking about the whole idea of money and power and our society in general. And it's kind of funny because you have to think of how lucky we are even just to be here. And I mean as a whole, but individually. If you think of how we're born and how planet evolves, and just the whole idea of this planet even being here in the first place, we're so lucky that, you know, we've been given this opportunity to like advance and work with our planet, and I mean with it, alongside it, not against it, and work with each other. And what do? We start wars. We kill the planet that we're living on.
We find any reason to not agree with each other.
I just think that we need to celebrate how lucky we are to be here, and find ways to, you know, because I think the human race has a real opportunity here to be something better than we are, and unfortunately we just keep getting dragged into hate and war and destruction, and I know that's part of our DNA, but I think that, you know, we're at the top of the food chain for a reason, and we have to sort of like we have to grow out of that. We've got to go forward and be a little better.
Well, it's part of our DNA is hate, but some of our DNA is love too, and there's got to be a time when the human race has to exude that more so than everything else, one would hope.
Well, and social media is not helping things. You know, it's really easy to grab onto hate, but you got to like tunnel vision, like love, work on things. You know, we got it. You know, and I guess that's an easier said than done thing, because
you got to be someone who's willing to fix things rather than someone who's willing to say, well, this isn't my problem, I'm not going to deal with it, blah blah.
And
blah,
I say that as a privileged Canadian. You know, I was dealt some good hand, you know, being born in this country and having, you know, not only the right but the ability to speak my opinion, where I know there's a lot of people in different countries that don't have that privilege.
Well, there's a lot of people who wish they could play in a political punk band that would be thrown in jail or possibly even worse, probably even worse, for trying to do something like that. And it has happened in the past, and it's pretty terrible that like there's places where people are controlled and don't have their own freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the best Belvedere road stories? Do you have any good tour stories?
Don't put me on the spot. I don't know.
You don't have to throw anyone under the bus.
Yeah, there's, there's just so much, like, and you read all these books of these other bands, like, and the stuff that happened to us can't even compare. So I'm not really even going to bring it up. But
no, it's okay.
We've spent a lot of time, and we've spent a lot of time out there, and we've done some really dumb things. Nothing that I couldn't share with my family or wife, but we've definitely I don't know, we alcohol drove this band for a long time, and thankfully it's taken a backseat.
That's good. It seems to be
my liver and my liver thanks me for that. So
I'm sure it truly does. What are some of your favorite places to play and why? Like, you mentioned that you tour Europe a lot.
Yep.
That you've been to South America.
Yeah, I mean, Japan has always been really good for the band. We're hoping to go there again here in 2018.
Nice.
Yeah, that's always been really good for us. Just in terms of like good label support and good fans there. We've had some great tours there. South America's easily the craziest, though. I mean, we've been hitting Brazil somewhat frequently over the last little while, but we've gone back to some places like Colombia and now Chile and Peru and Argentina that we had some fans there. We had no idea, and they're probably some of the craziest that we've ever had. So those are really good. Italy's always been really good, and just like that, Ontario, Quebec, like Montreal's always been really good for Belvedere and Toronto, and so the list goes on. I mean, the band's probably been to 35 or more countries, and I was in Russia with This Is a Standoff and had no idea how great the fans were there. And we played a killer show in Moscow there a bunch of years ago, and hey, you never know until you get out there, right?
Exactly, right? You have to spread your wings and try things before you actually know if it's going to work or not.
And that's why streaming and downloading music and stuff has never been a bad thing for our band. It's always been what's propelled our band, because we weren't on these big labels, and it's kind of been the it's been the streaming and the stealing music that has kind of driven our band. So yeah, no,
it hurts the larger artists, but it almost seems to help the smaller ones in a way.
Yeah, well, we'd have no chance if we were worried about record sales in Brazil or Russia. We'd never go there.
Yeah,
but because people don't buy records in those places, and truthfully, they don't buy them anywhere now. But like,
a lot of people don't.
but that's never been our thing. It's always about get the music out however possible. So it was always kind of funny to me when our albums leaked early. Or people is like, oh, they're all this crazy streaming from this country, and it's like, awesome. That means a bunch of people have our record, and why did we make it in the first place? We don't make music to make money. We make music to get our message out and to have a good time and to tour. And look what it's done for us.
Well, that's it. Is if you were doing it to make money, you'd be one of those people who's trying to make the top 40 charts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't be playing 240 beats a minute if I was looking to get on the charts.
No, be playing 4 chords, maybe 3, and
probably 2.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't know how to work a synthesizer, so there you go.
That's a good reason not to do it. All right, I have one last question for you.
Well, then I have one last answer.
All right. So, who were your idols in music and in life when you were growing up?
I would say band-wise, Pennywise, NoFX, Bad Religion. Those are the first 3 that really got me going. I would say that bands like Strung Out, Mad Caddies, Lagwagon, Pulley, those were all bands, and luckily for us we got to play with them.
That's awesome.
I played a little football in high school. I had a high school coach who just not only helped me on the football field and helped me really grow as a kid. He introduced me to a recording engineer that used to work for CBC, his next door neighbor. That helped me propel into getting into. That kind of got my life into music and the whole recording aspect of it, and it actually was the start of me starting my record label when I got out of high school. So you never know where the influence comes from. A football coach helped me get more into. I was already going to shows. I loved punk, but I didn't understand the aspect of it. That aspect of the recording, the business part of it. And I met a guy named Bob Doble that worked at CBC. And he just laid a lot of stuff out that I really was itching for.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all.
Awesome.
All right, I want to give a big thank you to Steve Rawles of Belvedere for joining us here on the Desert Tiger podcast. He took time out of his busy day to give us a great interview, and we are extremely, extremely thankful for that. And we are also extremely thankful for you, the listener of the Desert Tiger podcast, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. Whether you're listening on iTunes, Google Play Music, or Stitcher, you know we love ya, and we hope that you rate and review the show on iTunes so that we can continue to bring you a high-quality list of guests and talent. You can find the Desert Tiger podcast on social media at Desert Tiger Entertainment on Facebook, Desert Tiger Pod on Twitter, or Desert Tiger Podcast on Instagram. We will be back next Tuesday with a show with Too Soon Monsoon out of Saskatoon. Try saying that 10 times fast, why don't you? I know I probably couldn't. And before we let you go, we need to let you know how to apply for the Song of the Day or to give us a book club suggestion. You send those on over to desert.tiger.podcast@gmail.com. And we will get that up on our show. We'll make that work out. And before we let you go, you know we always give you a quote of the day to get you through your hard day. So, this one comes to us from Teddy Roosevelt himself. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. This has been episode 8 of the Desert Tiger podcast, and I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I hope you join us for episode 9, Too Soon Monsoon, next Tuesday.
The Desert Tiger Podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thanks for listening.